guys, Absolute Duelist here, coming at you with a new Yu-Gi-Oh video, and in today's Yu-Gi-Oh video, we are going to be doing the top 5 best decks in the new February format, because we've just entered the format, tier elements are dead, and I want to talk about what I think are the best decks going into this new format. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about this new format, see what the best decks are going to be in my personal opinion, and just talk about them and give you my thoughts in general. So let's go ahead and start off with number 5. So guys, at number 5, I have a deck that a lot of people probably wouldn't think is still going to be meta in the upcoming format, but actually is still really strong, and this deck is Sprite. Now, I'm going to be completely honest guys, Sprite is not a deck I originally thought would still be very strong going into the upcoming format. I thought without Elf, the deck is dead, you cannot play it, and it's not as strong as it once was. But I'm going to admit I was wrong. This deck is still very powerful. This deck still has access to everything it did before other than Elf, still being able to control the game very easily, still being able to utilize its consistency, still being able to utilize everything it once had, and being very strong because of it. It's still got access to the Nimble package, being able to force out level 2s very easily, going into very combos, eccentric plays, being able to end on double toad now instead of triple toad, which is unfortunate because a triple toad was really strong, but double toad is still very powerful because you can go ahead and summon the toad back with double cross, and you even got access into other types of builds of this deck as well, such as the live twin version, which actually I kind of think is probably the superior version of this deck now, just because it goes into a lot more combo plays, can go ahead and control the board with the live twin cards, and also can still do everything else the deck originally did. But there's the other version, which is the adventure version, which is also really strong in this format because it has removal, it has an omni negate, the deck has literally everything it did before barring Elf. All it's lost is recursion, but the deck didn't really need the recursion because the deck still has a lot going for it, with a lot of other engines and a lot of other things in itself that are just very powerful. Like having access to cards like Double Cross and also Sprite Smashers is absolutely insane, and still being able to Toad on turn 1 thanks to cards like the Bujin Link monster, and also having access into Gigantic Sprite and still the number 2 monster that can go ahead and just kill your opponent's tile upwards if they control a monster with more than 3k attack points. This deck still has a lot going for it, it's still very strong, and definitely still one of the best choices to play in the game. So now that I've said that, let's go ahead and go on to number 4, because Sprite is definitely not dead yet. At number 4, I have a deck that I don't think a lot of people actually believe will be good, but in my personal opinion is actually pretty strong going forward into the new format. Now, this deck is a deck that I believe to be powerful, strong, has a lot of utility, and can also just control the game very easily, and this deck is Labyrinth. A deck that really just does love the purple trap cards and telling your opponent, you activated my trap card. Because honestly, this deck is great. This deck has a lot of utility traps throughout the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh, such as Ice Dragon's Prison, Dogmatica Punishment, Compulsory Evacuation Device. This deck has access to all of those and can get to them very easily because the big ladies in the deck, the lovely Labyrinth and also the Lady of the Labyrinth, give you access into these cards very easily. Lovely Labyrinth destroys cards when you activate purple cards, and Lady of the Labyrinth goes ahead and sets them from the deck as well when you activate normal purple cards. So the deck's got consistency and also ways to get to more purple cards to control the game even more, which is just great for any trap deck because that's what trap decks need. They need consistency and ways to get to more purple cards, and these two cards fulfill that while also destroying your opponent's cards at the same time. And on top of that, even though this deck has great consistency for trap cards, this deck can utilize any trap card, not just normal trap cards, any of them. So this deck has access to stuff like Rivalry of the Warlords, Skill Drain, Summon Limit, any floodgates in the game, and can even utilize great hand trap-esque cards or kaijus such as Lava Golem to go ahead and tribute those pesky kashtiras during this format. So honestly, Labyrinth is a very scary deck this format, and you should be very careful when going up against it, and definitely have your back for removal side decks, guys, because I definitely predict this deck's gonna come out of nowhere and be very strong this format. So that is number 4. Let's go on to number 3, guys. And number 3, I have a deck that honestly I don't think anyone out there thought it would be this low on the list, but in my opinion, it's actually not as good as everyone thinks, but is still really, really strong. And this deck is Kashtira. Now, yes, Kashtira is number 3. Do not pick up your pitchforks. It is not going to be the best deck because of a lot of reasons, really. It's really easy to disrupt, but nonetheless, do not think it is a bad deck by any means, even though it's very easy to disrupt with stuff like Book of Eclipse, Book of Moon, Kaijus, Lava Golem, Nibiru. Even though it's very easy to deal with, this deck is still a deck to be reckoned with. This deck can easily steal your monster zones, steal your back row, can literally say you have no zones on the board, especially on turn 1. Well, if you get the right hand, you can just go ahead and lock all 5 monster zones on turn 1, and the deck has access to a lot more on top of that as well, having access to a macro Cosmos that can detach free materials, get more materials back, and banish opponents' cards face down to take more zones from your opponent with Kashtira Shangri-La. And the deck is very strong, it's very powerful. We all know it's definitely a very, very strong deck. This format has access to a lot of different cards, such as the adventure package as well, which is just really insane, being that it does not need to normal summon, it just needs to special summon while it controls no monsters. Kashtira are definitely one of the best decks in the format, just very easy to disrupt, which is why I put them at number 3, but is definitely a very strong contender this format and should not be underestimated if you guys are against it. So Kashtira is number 3, don't pick up the pitchforks, put them down please, and let's go on to number 2. I have a deck that I did not want to see come back into the game, and this deck is Dinos. Dinos is the second best deck in the game again, and I did not want to see this deck come back, but hey, it's here for one specific reason. And this reason is True King Lithosagem is back to free. This card that made Dinos absolutely insane back in the day has come back to free, and because of that, I see this deck being one of the best decks in the game again. Not only is Dinosaurs an absolutely insane matchup against Kashtira, being able to just Book of Moon their entire board, stopping them from playing the game, but this deck gets so much extra consistency thanks to True King Lithosagem's unbanning or unlimiting that it just really goes crazy now. Being able to destroy your baby Cerosaurus and petite Pterodon is absolutely insane. Being able to summon multiple sort of dinosaurs from the deck, such as Pancratops, being able to summon a multiple Elite Novoraptor, being able to have access into all of your Dino engine, being able to summon anything you really, really want from the deck, and get so much consistency out of it, it's absolutely insane. Dinosaurs are doing everything they did before, but now it has access into Lithosagem again, and can also go into rank 9 players again, technically, if you make the right build. So honestly, True King Lithosagem coming back makes this deck absolutely insane. Dinosaurs were already a pretty good rogue strategy as well. Just having a Book of Moon that could attack everything is absolutely insane. It's very consistent as well and can go second absolutely easily. Being able to use stuff like Lightning Storm, Raigeki, all of these going second cards, which are just really, really strong. You can even use Evenly Matched going second. Like, Dinosaurs were already a really, really strong going second strategy, and now they can go first, make their board with Evil Swarm Dolka and going into your UTC turn 1, being able to make negates with like any of your Dino cards, and just having access into a lot more stuff now thanks to True King Lithosagem, being able to pop the baby dinosaurs again. This deck has more consistency than ever before again, and even with Miscellaneousaurus at 1, don't matter, you can search it and you can stop your opponent from affecting you that turn and just go into a lot of different combos. So yeah, True King Lithosagem has brought Dinos back into the meta. I think it's the second best deck. Let's go ahead and talk about the best deck now though, because Dinos may be strong, but they're not the best. So what is the best deck of the format? What is the deck that triumphs over all of these decks? And in my personal opinion, I don't think that's a really hard choice. Now, all of these decks that we've talked about here are very strong and very good in their own regards, but I personally don't think any of them top this deck. This deck has lost nothing in the last 5 months. This deck has only gotten stronger while Telements have been reigning alongside Sprite. This deck, in my opinion, is definitely the best deck of the format, no contender. And this deck is branded. Branded Bestial to be exact, because honestly guys, this deck, it's lost nothing. It's still got everything it had about 6-8 months ago. It's still got a lot of good cards in it. It's gotten more really good cards thanks to the bestials, and the deck has not gotten weaker any way, shape or form, and people have realized a lot more ways to play the deck and make the deck stronger. Now, what am I talking about? Well, on top of this, the first thing about this deck is it has branded fusion, an absolutely insane fusion spell that allows you to end on Mirror Jade, a card that gives you consistency by sending your branded fusions from the extra deck to the graveyard, while also banishing your opponent's monsters. Absolutely insane. And if they kill that Mirror Jade, they get Raigeki'd at the end of the turn. So that's just the first really strong thing in this deck. It's got a banish that can Raigeki your opponent's board, and that can also give you consistency by sending Albion to the graveyard. It's an insanely strong card and really does show how good this deck is just right off the bat. 2, this deck has access to all the bestial cards. It's got Magnamart, being able to search you any bestial or dragon monster during the end of the turn. It's got Lubellion, that is just absolutely insane. Bestial Lubellion literally says you can search any of your branded continuous spells. Or traps, you can go ahead and search the branded trap card that can just go ahead and tribute a dragon and pop any card on the board, so it gives you more interaction in the deck. It can also discard itself to go ahead and search any of the bestials from the deck as well, and summon itself by tributing any dragon monster. The card is absolutely insane and is just really, really strong. So that's just one thing. It's got access to the new bestial as well, that says when your opponent summons from the extra deck, you can tribute one other dark or light monster, I believe, to go ahead and banish that extra deck monster. So it's got access into these really, really strong cards, and it's just absolutely insane how branded have just gotten a huge boost thanks to these decks just disappearing out of nowhere. And that isn't all, guys. Like, this deck still has access to all the old stuff as well. You can go ahead and use branded red to summon Chimera during your opponent's turn, popping and drawing cards, giving you more interaction on your opponent's turn and giving you more ways to disrupt them. And finally, the thing that really just put the nail in the coffin, in my personal opinion, this deck has access to branded Expulsion. An absolutely insane card that says you contribute one fusion monster and go ahead and summon 2 non-fusion monsters from the banished or graveyard to either side of the field. So what am I thinking off the top of my head? Well, this card was already being used with Artifact Scythe to summon Scythe to your board, give your opponent a useless monster, and go ahead and stop your opponent from summoning from the extra deck. But you know what else this card can be utilized with? This can be utilized with Ra's Disciple, stopping your opponent from being able to summon anything right now. This can be used with Edo, the Supreme Magical Force, stopping your opponent from summoning anything. This card and this combo in Branded really does solidify, in my personal opinion, that Branded is the best deck going forward. It's got everything it used to have. It's got a boost with all the sets from the last couple of months. It's got access to all the bestials, meaning any light or dark deck is still going to have a really, really hard time against it. And it can go ahead and utilize Edo, the Supreme Magical Force, Ra's Disciple, to just go ahead and say, no, I'm not letting you play the game, you're not going to be attacking, you're not going to be summoning, and I'm just going to wipe you on the following turn. So yes, all these decks are really great. Yes, they are really strong, but in my personal opinion, guys, be scared of Branded. This deck is definitively the best deck in this format, and everybody who was sleeping on it, you're really gonna learn that this deck just comes out of nowhere and takes the spot of Tearlament. So, yep, number 1 is Branded Bestial, the best deck of this format in my personal opinion. And yeah, that's all I have to say, guys. That is the video. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think these are the best decks in the format? Do you think you would change things out? Do you think Sprite doesn't deserve to be number 5? Do you think something beats it out? Do you think Labyrinth isn't the best trap deck? Do you think kashtira really should be the number 1 best deck? And do you agree with me? Lithosagium should have stayed limited, so Dinos are not the best deck in the game. But guys, that is really all I have to say for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy, and let's have a great format without the Tearlaments. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Roll that one, signing out. Later all.